work through our first real program that has a sort of beginning, middle, and end. So here we go. A big part of any programming language is the syntax for constants. The nice thing about this, it's kind of instinctive. So like 123 or 98.6, numbers, both integer and floating point numbers, we've been using these on calculators. They make a lot of sense to us. The kind of constants that are a little bit different are things like string constants. So quote, hello world is a string constant. And we use that so that our program can say nice things to people that are using our program. And so we call them constants because they don't change, but it's kind of obvious. Constants. It's just a piece of the language. So that's a constant. What else? Variables and key and reserved words. So the other thing other than constants are reserved words. And as I said in an earlier lecture, these are like dog language. Blah, 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 class, blah, 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 del, blah, 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 else, blah, 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 lambda. So these are words that when you say them to Python, Python expects them to mean exactly what Python wants you to mean. Now, why is this special? It's actually kind of instinctive. It just means don't use these for other things. Don't name functions, don't name classes, don't name variables. Places where you get choices to use words, don't use these words. And most of them aren't too big of a problem. I don't know, maybe break or in or from maybe. Some of these you might naturally use. Most of them are kind of weird enough that you're probably not going to use them as variable names. And so the third atom basically is variables. And you get to pick the variable names. And it's a little weird that you get to pick variable names, but you'll get used to it. And so variable names are places where you're asking Python to allocate a bit of memory and stick something in it. And you're choosing the label. And so if we take a look at this, when we have this assignment statement, and remember that assignment statements always have a direction, right? Think of these equal signs as having an arrow on them. In some languages, I saw a language that uses kind of an arrow, that uses a less than and a dash as the assignment. I'm like, that's how it should be. Because equal confuses us, because equal means something different in mathematics than it does in Python or other programming languages. So to look at this very first statement, what we're really saying is it's a pretty complex statement. After a while, you'll just use it. Python, find us a spare piece of memory somewhere and give it a label of X and put 12.2 in it. And remember that. Remember all that stuff. That's one of the things that Python does for us. It remembers stuff. Then we go to the second statement. It says, oh, hey, Python, find some memory, some spare memory that you got laying around, label it Y, and put 14 into that. Okay? And so that's how these things work. And you chose X and you chose Y. Now, if we keep on going in this code, and now we have another line, and we say, oh, hey, X, wait a sec, I already told you about X. X already exists, so don't go and grab any new memory, but stick 100 in that. So 100 goes in, and it wipes out the old value. So that's what happens. That's when this sequence starts. This happens first, second, third. And so the third thing is the last thing, and so X ends up with a residual value of 100 in it. So that's kind of variables and assignment statements. You have some naming rules. You can start variable names with letters or underscores, although we avoid underscores because Python tends to use underscores for its own internal purposes. And the rest of it can be letters, numbers, and underscores. And it's case sensitive. But we don't want you to depend on that. So spam all lowercase, spam with one uppercase, and spam, these all are different variable names. But you're not doing anybody any favor if you think that's being clever. We tend to sometimes use uppercase to signal things, which we'll talk about later, but we tend to use mostly lowercase. Some applications use what's called camel case, which is a mix, but you tend not to depend on the fact that these are unique because you really are misleading the person who's reading your code. But we have some good ones, spam, egg, spam 23, numbers are fine.